Sunday School, starring Penn. My name is Michael Goodell, and along with Matt Donnelly, we are broadcasting from the Show Creator Studios in Las Vegas. The fantastic actor, writer, director David Wain is right here in the studio with us. We're going to try to get him to talk a little bit about A Futile and Stupid Gesture and Wet Hot American Summer. He also wrote and directed Role Models, which Jara was watching yesterday for the 7th time.
7th time?
7th time.
7th time Role Models?
Here he is, preaching love, Mr. Penn.
Wow.
It is a great movie.
7th time.
Well, I don't know this movie.
Oh, it's very funny.
Well, we have.
It's a classic.
It's a classic?
It's a comedy classic.
C or K?
K.
Okay.
Keystone Comedy Cop Classic.
Well, I will tell you, I do not watch comedies. I just don't.
Thanks for coming
generally
in. Bye.
don't either.
They make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I wanted to watch. Why did I want to watch it? I don't know. Oh, I know why I wanted to watch it. I wanted to watch Futile and Stupid Gesture because of my friend Martin Mull.
Yeah.
And the whole time he was working on it, he was raving about you.
He is the best guy ever.
Yes, he is.
And
an inspiration. You know, growing up in a small town as an atheist, you know, I had Martin Mull, Randy Newman, Frank Zappa were the only, like, atheist role models.
pretty good trio.
Yeah. And I became friendly with Martin. He's the only one who was in both The Aristocrats and Tim's Vermeer.
There you go.
He's in those two movies.
Two great movies.
And he was telling me about how he was doing this, National Lampoon movie and playing Doug Kinney if he had not died.
Exactly.
And I didn't really understand how it was going to work out. And then he played me this incredible song, the first, like, non-comedy song he'd written, and that you would put that in the movie.
Well, he came over to my house to play me this song he had written and said, would it fit in the movie? And I'd start crying by the time it's over. And I'm like, yeah, we're putting that in. It was unbelievable.
It's amazing. It's so. It made me think. You know, how many songs that Martin Mull should have written that weren't comedy?
Well, maybe he needs to star now.
Yeah. It's just.
I feel like maybe people are confused. Doug Kenny was the founder of the National Lampoon magazine.
Right.
And then he went on to write Animal House and Caddyshack. Mm-hmm. And the movie that I made is a story of Doug Kenny, starring Will Forte.
And also, I call it a comedy, but it is, by definition, a tragedy.
Oh, yeah.
That's just funny all the way through.
And it's really a drama about funny people trying and what it's like to do comedy.
Yeah,
in some ways,
and that weird kind of success thing. And what really struck me about the movie is the fuck is directed out of it. It's really directed. I mean, with a character that's this other character walking through stuff on the screen that explains things they did. And you always, when you're in writing meetings and you're talking about doing that kind of stuff, or you're talking about how it's going to be directed, everybody always shoots that down and says it'll take people out of the story.
Right.
It'll do this. It'll do that. All the stuff they say, none of it's true.
Well, and I generally agree with that. I feel like, you get really tricky and kitschy with directing, and then it can be super distracting. But
why did it work so well in your movie? Because you're that good.
I'm so good at what I do. But also, when we worked on this for 8 years, and the writers of the movie, Colton and Abood, pitched it to me, and their first stab was like, we'll just tell the story in a linear way. And I said, you know what, I feel like if we're going to do a story of this guy, it has to be as outside the box as he might have done in his medium at his time. And so we just stood back and said, how do you make a biopic that isn't, just by almost definition, it hits all those cliches. So we had to open it up and break the fourth wall in different ways. And I feel like that's what we had to do. And it's also my taste. It's also what I love to do. And I've spent my career figuring out the right way, at least for my own sense, to do that.
And the scene about when you just dealt with the fact that it's all white men, just instantly. What's that scene? 20 seconds or something?
Yeah.
And you deal with it just beautifully and perfectly and just, yes.
We felt like, well, that's a lot of what Martin Mull's character was the modern day imagined version of Doug Kenny commenting backwards on his life was, among many things, a helpful device to give it a little bit of context, so that, because it's not the same. The humor from the National Lampoon in some cases doesn't travel through into a new culture. Right. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to just acknowledge what that was.
Now, how much of a Lampoon fan were you?
I got to say, I wasn't a big, I didn't know the Lampoon magazine that well growing up. I was maybe a little young for the height of their dominance, but I was into Mad magazine, and then I discovered Lampoon more in college, and when I was introduced to things I missed in high school, like Python and Lampoon.
Well, I'm 62.
Yeah.
So National Lampoon hit when I was in early high school.
Perfect.
And I was in a small town and could not believe that there was this intellectual approach to stupid comedy.
Right.
I even bought Lord of the Rings when it came out.
Oh, nice.
Because I hated Lord of the Rings so. I mean, everybody was into The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. I hated those. And I bought that. So that's the book they wrote while they were in college.
They wrote it at Harvard. Yeah. And they made a ton of money while they were still students at Harvard doing the Playboy parody and all this other stuff.
Yeah, the Playboy parodies also when they were there?
Yeah.
With the interview with Dan Blocker when he was dead?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, you went back, I imagine, and read all that stuff.
I went back and read a lot of it, and I will say, though, the screenwriters, Colton and Abood, were with me for 8 years doing research every day, and they had boxes and boxes of, and we did first-hand interviews with everyone we could find, and the research was so exhaustive, it was like a whole company moving on.
Now, when you talk about, I should let you do this first, and then we'll talk about crazy stuff. When you talk about the movie to people who just you want them to watch it, what do you say?
Well, I think it depends on who you are. I mean, I think if you care about the history of comedy or you like comedy at all, then you can understand that it's not random. There was a moment in time in the early 70s, throughout the 70s, where it was reinvented and a new way of looking at the world was put forth largely by the group of people that Doug Kenney put together at the National Lampoon. So this is like a really cool origin story about things that you might be interested in. I also just think it's a cool story about two friends, and you don't even have to care about anything else.
Well, Tony Hendra, you must know this book, Going Too Far.
Yeah.
Going Too Far, until it gets personal and about Tony Hendra, until it's all about Tony, is one of the greatest books on comedy around that Lenny Bruce time.
Yeah.
And so on. And I was in that weird moment where there was, for comedy, there was George Carlin, Monty Python, and nothing else.
Right.
You know, Lenny Bruce was dead. Nothing was happening there. So when the National Lampoon hit was stuff that
they exploded the counterculture
that people didn't like.
Yeah.
That bothered people. You know, music had been bothering people a lot, but comedy had not.
And
comedy was still Bob Hope.
Exactly, and they were looking for that point of view that said we don't give a shit what people think, and like let's just go for it. And that's why it was such a disruptor. And up until basically SNL came and took over the zeitgeist from them, they were the voice of counterculture comedy.
Well, I liked National Lampoon so much that Saturday Night Live deeply offended me.
Sure.
You know, because I would have been...
I hadn't realized that connection until seeing the movie.
Right.
I would have been 20. I was 20 when Saturday Night Live hit. And I'd seen Lemmings.
Which was their stage show.
Off Broadway. And so National Lampoon hit. So Saturday Night Live hit. And I was like... oh man, this is just so jive. I watched the first one and just said I was out. And by the way, have not watched one since then.
Even though you've been on it many times.
Yeah, but I don't watch things I'm on. You know, a lot of people have that quality. But I just went, oh no, that's not it. But I got to New York. I hitchhiked to New York, and I was 18. Hitchhiked to New York City, and all I wanted to do was see Lemmings, and it was a National Lampoon show. And I had not been to New York City. I was a country mouse. I had no idea about anything. Hadn't met anybody in show business. And so I went to a phone booth, and I opened the phone book and looked up National Lampoon.
Oh, my God.
And got the phone number and called. And the phone was answered, O'Donoghue.
No way.
Yeah. And I went, the first famous person I'd ever talked to. And I said, you got to show Lemmings. Where is that and when is it? Can I buy tickets?
Oh my God.
And he said, what the fuck? Call the box office. And I hung up the phone and just stood there going, I talked to Michael O'Donoghue. I actually talked to Michael O'Donoghue.
Today you'd have to Google it, and there's none of that magic.
Yeah, I know. It was amazing. And I didn't even know that, you call the National Lampoon offices and you buy a ticket and you go to see their show.
Right.
And I went down to the Village Gate and saw and talk with them afterwards. Talk with Belushi and Chevy Chase and all those guys afterwards, and made jokes. And
I can't even see. I used to live a block from the Village Gate for years, and I would sometimes just imagine, if I was here 30 years ago, and I could walk down the street and see Bob Dylan in one room and Bill Cosby in another, and the Lemmings in the other. It was just, it's not the same anymore.
And Lemmings was just the idea of making fun of Woodstock.
Right.
But hip people making fun of Woodstock. We knew everybody was making fun of Woodstock, but not anybody we respected.
Right. Well, they hit every side, which was just we actually recreated a lot of Lemmings for the movie and didn't put it in.
Oh, really?
Because it wasn't really as on spine for the story of Doug Kenny, because it wasn't really his baby.
It was all Tony Hendra, right?
It was Tony's thing, yeah. But we did a lot of the sketches and a lot of the music, and it was a great shoot, but it just didn't fit.
Yeah, I memorized.
Can we buy that footage from you?
Sure.
I memorized that whole show.
Oh my God!
I knew all of it, and they were doing also the Deteriorata.
Right.
The thing. You're part of the universe. The universal lab behind your back.
But I wonder what you think. When I listen to it now, I feel like a lot of it you sort of have to imagine yourself there more than it fully working as.
But see, I can't get.
Right.
You don't trust anybody's opinion on any music they heard 3 years plus or minus their first blowjob. Right. That stuff goes into you in a certain way. When someone's telling you how great a Kiss song is,
right,
you have to say to them, how old were you when you first heard it?
That's like,
and if the answer is 15, wonderful. That's something for you, but we're not talking about music.
Unfortunately, for me, it's Rock Me Amadeus.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is a fucking great song. Nobody's going to tell me otherwise. And it's because it came out when I was 15.
So Lemmings is that for me. Lemmings was going to New York City for the first time, and this shows me to be such a bumpkin. I think it may have been the first live show I saw.
Oh my goodness!
Wow. Lemmings. So this is what live stuff can be.
Did you ever get to know O'Donohue after that?
Well, yes. I went out to dinner with him once.
What a character! I mean,
and I remember him saying to me, which I'm sure is a line he said a million times, and I've been very conscientious about not trying to find where it's from, because I want him to have said that to me. I have stuff that Hitchens said to other people a zillion times,
right,
but I want to only have said it to me. And O'Donohue said to me as we were walking to dinner, O'Donohue said, surely God could have thought of a better gift to give us than life.
Oh my God. That's so perfect.
And I so want that. I mean, obviously it's something he'd said a million times.
Yeah.
Obviously, except I don't believe that.
Maybe not. You never know.
I believe he was just walking to dinner and decided, this is what I want to say to Penn right now.
Well, I'd give anything to see a movie about him. And the guy, Tom Lennon, my friend who played O'Donohue in our movie, is incredible. And
really good.
Just love it.
Really good. Now, this is every time you tell a story, every time you tell a story as accurately as you can, you're lying.
Right.
Every time you make a movie, you're absolutely lying. So these questions I'm going to ask you now are all nonsense.
Okay.
But within the parameters of we know everything you did was a lie. There was no food fight at the funeral.
Correct.
Henry Beard thought it would be disrespectful to the parents.
Something like that, yeah.
Was there even a shrimp thrown?
I think no, there was some food fight-esque thing that happened at some other event. It was maybe a tribute thing that happened at the Magic Castle another time, but it was around it. We picked and chose things from different things, and we, throughout our movie we say on screen how much we make it up.
Yeah.
Plus, as you said, it's always made up.
It always is.
And one of the things that I keep learning over and over again in anything I'm working on is the elasticity of memory is just unbelievable.
And once you've told it wrong, you will tell it wrong then forever.
And you remember it that way, and it keeps Xeroxing the Xerox.
Mm-hmm. And also the stuff I told you about calling Michael O'Donohue and going to...
Who knows?
Very little of that is true. But I mean, I don't know.
Right.
I only know that very little of it is true because what I've studied about memory. It's absolutely true to me.
One of the things that happened, a guy wrote a long oral history of the sketch comedy group I started out in called The State from NYU. And he interviewed 11 of us in this sketch group. And we told these stories that are famous in our group of things that happened to us, monumental moments in our group's history. And each guy told the story differently, changing huge facts of the case. I don't think anyone was lying. We were all in the same rooms at the same time, but that's the way memory is. I just think you remember certain things because somebody said it or just because you see it differently. And it's an incredible phenomenon.
Well, you came backstage before the show because you had your children with you, so we only saw you for a minute or two.
Which was such a thrill.
But after the show, Teller and I often have people backstage, and often those conversations go for hours, and I will sit there as Teller tells stories about Penn and Teller that I was in. And there is no overlap to my memory whatsoever.
Right.
And I do, because I'm essentially a teenage girl at heart, I do keep a journal.
Yeah.
And I'll go back and check things. And you would think that you would be telling the stories to more likely make yourself the hero. Right. And then I said this. When I go back and check, no. Just as likely to give the big punchline to someone else that you said.
Right.
You know, it's amazing how there isn't even a formula to get back to it.
Right.
I mean, when you told the story wrong, it probably wasn't even like you would do it like, oh, and now David's the star of this. No. Everything's wrong.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It just gets mixed up. It gets mixed in a blender as time goes by, and every time it's told.
You know, Amazing Randy. Of
course.
There was a lot of work done that I put some money in and so on to do a serious biography of Amazing Randy. It's still being worked on, kind of. But we had serious researchers called in, and Randy was interviewed for hours and hours and hours, and other people were interviewed for hours and hours and hours. And then all the stuff was done by someone who does this, someone who knows this stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember Randy flew into Vegas to see me, and we were at the baggage claim. And Randy was crying. And he said to me, I've tried so hard to be honest in my life, and this research is destroying me.
Oh, my goodness.
Because none of the stories I tell are true. None of them. And he said, I've tried so hard. And they were finding out that the story he told of where he was in Toronto, he was actually in Vancouver.
Because people research it.
I mean, it is a nightmare.
I've just taken to whenever I tell a story that's more than a week old, I'm like, or maybe not.
Yeah, I do that too.
This is what I remember, but who the hell knows?
And it's just the National Lampoon stuff and all that. And I had somebody say to me, which that they thought that you skewed it more towards suicide than was the generally accepted opinion.
I did not do that, or I did not intend that, certainly. Spoiler alert for those who, but basically our hero falls off a cliff at the end of the movie at age 33, right after Caddyshack comes out.
But it was the shot of the clothes folded
putting
in the glasses.
Him putting his glasses down on the ground, I think, is what, for me, implied suicide more than accident.
Sure. I respect that, but to me, I feel like for what I was going for is he's sitting there, he's looking out, he's at a moment in his life, that's for sure. Yeah. And that was true. And we don't know what happened. Nobody knows. Right. He either fell or he jumped. But I tried to communicate what I believe to be the case, which is nobody knows.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly say, I mean, those words are actually said.
Yeah.
Right. But I furthermore personally feel that it doesn't particularly matter because it's not.
Well, the line, isn't it Anne that says he probably fell while looking for a place to jump?
Harold Ramis.
Harold Ramis, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a real line he had said. And exactly the point. Like he was not in a good place, and the saddest thing is how arbitrary it is to me that was a time when everyone was heavily into drugs, and there was a lot of addiction before people really understood addiction at all, and he didn't survive it. Some people did, some people didn't, and there's something of an arbitrary nature that some people got through that and lived the rest of their lives, and so it's just profoundly sad. But whether or not he committed suicide or had an accident, I don't know.
Now, how much help did you have from people who were there?
Not a lot of like super direct, like we didn't have anybody on set or that we were calling every day, but we had, we spoke to Henry Beard, and we spoke to...
And what's Henry Beard doing now?
Henry Beard lives very quietly, very anonymously. He spent all the time after, he got big payout at the end of Lampoon that we see in the movie, and then he started writing these very soft humor books like 101 Ways to Do a Cat, or silly, like buy them at the front counter of the bookstore.
Did you say do a cat?
I forget. That
doesn't sound like a soft book at all. That sounds like a hardcore book.
How to do a cat.
101 Ways to Rape a Cat, I think is what it is. Maybe I have that wrong.
Memory is so fleeting.
Yeah. But he basically he made a lot of money writing soft humor books, but he never stayed on that edgy space, and he never stayed in the public eye, or he never was in the public eye in the first place. But he's kept very quiet. He doesn't talk about this stuff that much. But we had a lovely conversation with him, and he himself, I thought, really whitewashed a lot of the memories. We had heard so many accounts, even from him in the past, about the conflicts and everything, and he was like, "No, it was really lovely and fun." And but we reached out to everyone who's alive.
Yeah, did you talk to Chevy Chase?
I did not. Joel McHale, who plays Chevy Chase, spoke to Chevy a little bit. But Chevy, Chevy. So,
yeah. But also Joel McHale's relationship with Chevy.
Exactly.
What is that?
Well,
so they were on Community together, and Chevy Chase became very difficult to work with on the show. People started airing his voicemails and stuff like that too. Joel McHale was the star of that show, so a lot of the times when things were being held up by Chevy, like Joel McHale was, so for him to be able to play Chevy in a movie after he'd had direct kind of conflict.
Oh, I didn't even know that was going on.
They famously butted heads as co-stars of this show on TV for 6 years, and now he's playing him. It's just kind of funny, but and he does a brilliant job, I think.
He does.
But yeah, so I mean, a lot of those, we did not get in touch with, for example, Bill Murray, or some of the people that are more elusive in the world, but. We also had the benefit of the research. Karp, the guy who wrote the original book that this is based on, had interviewed 300 people. We interviewed another 100 ourselves. And so, we had a lot of that going in. But day to day, we just kind of then had our research, and then we told our story our way.
Sure.
But also our production design team, for example, did their own firsthand research on all sorts of things. And the costume department did their own research. It was really a research-heavy production, especially for me, where everything I've done up until now is completely made up based on nothing.
Well, I because Martin was working on it, and because it seemed like a project that mattered to Martin.
Well, and by the way, he was there. He was around that time, and so he was and there were a few other actors that we worked with in smaller roles who knew these people.
And Martin also is very close to the age that Doug Kenny would have been.
Yep.
And he also is from Ohio.
Yep, as am I.
Near there.
Yep.
And so the accent is dead on.
Yeah.
And he was telling me about this movie, and I got to tell you, I watched it. You don't ever want to watch a movie about something you love or something you know anything about.
Yeah.
Because it can be heartbreaking. So I watched this for Martin, and I don't watch everything Martin's in, because Martin does a lot of situation comedy appearances I just don't care about. He wouldn't care about me watching it. But I get the sense that that he would kind of want me to watch this. And I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I did like the title very much. I loved it. But I said, oh, boy, this is going to be, whatever this is, it's going to disappoint me about the National Lampoon, because it means a lot to me. It's really important to me. And so I'll watch it for Martin and see how it is. And I could not have been more more pleasantly surprised.
I'm so happy to hear that.
And
he assigned it to us.
I felt that way about The Disaster Artist, which is about that movie, The Room, that I loved so much, and I felt like, oh, why are you doing this? But then I was surprised by that too.
I couldn't even watch The Room because I didn't even think that going there was going to be okay for me, but maybe I will.
Yeah,
but I will tell you that at the end of
Futile, Stupid Gesture.
Yeah, there was not crying, there was sobbing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I was not okay at the end of that, and I had a grandmother who judged every movie by if she cried or not. If she cried, it was a good movie. If she didn't cry, it was a bad movie.
One of our producers has the same measure.
Yeah. And I really did laugh out loud all the way through it. Watching it on my phone with headphones in bed, and then at the end. Was sobbing enough so as not to be able to go to sleep.
I mean,
which I think is about as good as you can do.
That's about as good as you can ask for a reaction to any movie. I mean, for me, if you really laugh and then you maybe cry, then what else do you want out of a movie? Yeah. I agree with you.
And also, I have because of my age, I have such a strong relationship to drugs because I never did any, and all my heroes did. It's one of the things that's so strange.
You share that with me as well.
Yeah. You didn't do drugs?
Never did any. I watched all my friends, all my peers, and all my heroes do them, but I just didn't.
Yeah. And so watching someone like Doug Kenny and just going, man, if he didn't do that, what would he be doing now?
I know.
What would he be doing now?
But then again, it's that other weird question of so many people who were so powerful in comedy then still kind of lost their way, even if they lived. And you just wonder which category he was going to fall into.
Yeah. Well, we certainly know. I think had John Lennon died 3 years later, he would not have been the hero he was. I mean, I think he was going down David Crosby Street.
Yeah. Could be. Although you never know. You just never know.
Now, for you, you started off with The State. That's that's You're Young. That's a cult hit.
I hope you're saying I Am Still Young is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it says you're talking about his path in comedy. What?
There were a lot of parallels that I related to. Well, we're both from Northeast Ohio, Doug Kenny and I, and then we both moved to the East Coast, he to Harvard and me to NYU, for the purpose of leaving the Midwest and going to where the smart people are, or getting in the loop, but still feeling like you're something of an outsider at the same time, and then finding these like-minded comedians, and then taking what you did in college onto the national stage. We both did exactly that. So I'm like a hero also.
No, but in other words, you've had to answer this question for yourself now that you didn't. I'm so sorry. You've gotten to answer this question for yourself that he never got to answer, which is like, how has your as you age, your relationship to comedy was so rebellious and visceral as a child, but now you've had to maintain a career where you have to think about comedy. What is that like? You got to age and he didn't. What is that like for you?
Well, it's a great question, actually, because up until now, I have always just tried to go with my gut. And when doing comedy, I feel like there's nothing the only rudder you have is your taste. And if once you start to break it down too much or systemize it too much, you're in big trouble. And I felt like, this feels funny, let's go for that. And then in my skills and the tools I've learned and gotten better at, and the craft over the years, hopefully every day I'm learning something, but the innate I'm funny and I think this is funny is the same. And I feel like I've drawn from organically my sense of humor from when I was 10 years old.
Right.
Still. And I do always worry, like, when's the day when I'm going to be the guy who's still trying to do what I do, but it's just ringing hollow, because it is ephemeral. It's not.
Right.
It's like a little bit of a magic thing.
I think like the South Park guys, they always say that like they've noticed their humor used to be more about the children. As they've grown up, they've written more about the parents, and they became parents during that time.
Well, inevitably, of course.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we have a joke with one of my longtime writing partners, Ken Marino, and I write screenplays throughout our whole lives. And when we were in college, we were like, okay, so here's a sketch. Regular guy, 19 years old, regular guy. And then now we like, just average guy, 48 years old.
And they always say that they say the same thing, that it has to come from a guilty pleasure with them and where they're at, and they consider each season of South Park to be like making an album. They don't think they're trying to make something contemporary.
Well, I love the way they do it and what they do, and the fact. I mean, I love that about Penn and Teller too. The way that you're taking something and saying, no, we don't have to do it the way that everyone else does it. Why? Let's try it our way. Let's try something else. And we're questioning every aspect of the process and every aspect of the presentation. And that's something I try to do too, and I more and more as I go forward.
Now with the
I think if you keep playing yourself instead of trying to play the young, you'll be fine. I don't think you'll ever be hollow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The hollowness comes from trying to stay a teenager.
What are the kids like?
No, but he writes for so many other shows and direct shows. Yeah. I'm just curious, like.
Well, but I get into that's the thing. I've been lucky enough that all of the big projects I've done throughout my career have been organically formed things that I've been obsessed with and wanted to do, and came out of something that is very real for me. But the day that I take a job, like somebody sent me a thing like, here's the Disney wants to do a thing where kids are stuck in Disney World on a grad school night, and it's like a teen whatever. And I'm like, one day if I end up taking that job because I need a paycheck, it's interesting. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Because when I did Role Models, which was my biggest commercial success, I was very worried about exactly this.
Right.
But I did it because I needed to try taking a swing in the studio film for the first time. Mm-hmm. But we laid in our sense of humor and our heart into it enough that I felt great about it by the end, and it felt like, yeah, this is our thing, but in this vessel.
But there's that weird thing where Captain Beefheart, as avant-garde as you can get,
right?
He's the only person I know who actually sold out. Captain Beefheart said, I am sick of doing avant-garde music. I want to do something that'll get on the radio. I'm sick of having all this artistic integrity. I'm going to make a record that will be successful. And I don't care about any sort of credibility. I don't care about my heart. And he approached the record company, said he was going to do that, did a record called Safe as Milk, with a little bit of a wink in the title. And he made one of the craziest fucking records anyone's ever made, trying very hard to do that. No one ever thought Captain Beefheart sold out, and yet he did. And then you've got someone like Billy Joel,
right,
who I believe does stuff completely and utterly from his heart, with complete integrity, and everybody kind of rolls their eyes.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if you have a choice.
I agree. In fact, when it was 2005, so a long time ago, when I was 35 years old, I guess, we did this show called Stella on Comedy Central.
I'm going to pause for applause.
Thank you.
I fucking love that
show.
I believe it was it still in the era of the Penn voice in Comedy Central? I don't know.
I don't remember saying it, so no.
But it was an outgrowth of these shorts we did, which were crazy, like on our own pre-web shorts. And then we decided at the time, okay, we're going to do this in a mainstream way. We're going to do a straightforward, just funny comedy that will appeal to a wide audience and make money. For whatever reason, our version of that was the weirdest show ever on television, and people were like, what the fuck is this? And the fans of the show were very tiny in number, but obsessed with it. Nobody else watched it. It was canceled after one season. But
that's absolutely, yeah. My comedy group, we all met at my house to watch Stella episodes when they came out.
Thank you. But and that was the thing. Like, so what we thought was selling out was not.
So I think that whole thing is just you don't have a choice.
There's a great
great liberating feeling to be like, okay, we do what we do. We'll just keep doing it and see how it goes.
And we can try to sell out. Disney can come to us and do that. We'll try. We'll try our best.
The checks and do what we can.
And we'll still be crazy.
Right. And in fact, like that's so many young people. When they start off, they say, like, I don't want to write mainstream bullshit, like anyone can write blah, blah, blah. I'm going to write this thing instead. And the truth is that, like, trying to write mainstream bullshit is the hardest. It's so
And also
hard.
The mainstream changes.
Yeah.
The mainstream changes entirely.
Yeah, I think the only people who do it well are the people who that's where their heart really is. Yeah. I feel like, and people try to sell out, they can't.
And the other favorite story about that is Sun Ra. We all love Sun Ra. He got asked to do a 45. They were going to put out a single of Sun Ra in the early 80s. So the record company said, let's put out a single of Sun Ra. Which, first of all, the art stops there. Once the guy says, we're putting out a single of Sun Ra, already the genius has happened. And he put out a song, the lyrics were, nuclear war. It's a motherfucker.
I'll buy it.
So that was his chart-topping song. Nuclear War, it was called. That was going to be his chart-topping song. So I don't know as you have to...
I mean, I was a big Kiss fan growing up, and I remember when they put out that song, I Was Made for Loving
Plus
You.
or minus 3 years, right?
Exactly. Well, yeah. But their big attempt at selling out was their worst record ever, but also their highest charting single ever. It's fascinating. Let's move on.
So
I was curious about. So you said you put 8 years of research into this movie.
Well, it was an 8-year process. No,
8-year process.
It was 8 years of writing, researching, looking for financing, pitching, developing.
Right.
2 years of really making it.
At that point, when you know so much about the world and the media landscape changed tremendously in that time, did it always stay a movie to you, or did you ever think we know so much? There's like a TV show here or something like that.
No, we never. We always just knew we wanted to do the movie. But what made it happen was the fact that by the time we got it made, Netflix was making movies, which they hadn't before, and Ted Sarandos, who runs Netflix, happens to really know his comedy and really cared about this stuff. And I don't think it would have gotten made any other way because it's not a super cheap movie. It's period, and so we. He put his might behind it, and that's how it got made. And so I'm very, for me, this is the first movie I made that isn't coming out theatrically, and I actually couldn't be happier because everybody seemed to see it in a way that at least people that I care about saw it way more readily and quickly than they would have if it had been a small theatrical release.
Right. Yeah.
It's on the depiction in that whole movie that really killed me was the depiction of Lorne Michaels. Boy, did you tell, from my point of view, the whole story of National Lampoon and Saturday Night Live in one, 3-minute scene?
Yeah.
And the beer.
Yeah.
They take my beer now, you're going to steal it from me anyway, whatever the exact line is.
That's Armin Weitzman playing Lorne Michaels. He's great.
Oh, and he nails 60 years of Lorne Michaels in a 2-minute scene.
Wow, that's amazing. I don't know Lorne myself, but
we worked with him a lot.
Yeah, sure.
It's just perfect, I mean, smart, knows comedy, but he's not going to be the guy Doug Kinney's going to talk to.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe he was more. I don't know Lorne, so I don't. So I was. It's a touchy subject in a weird way, and a lot of people work with Lorne and for Lorne, and it's I don't claim to know that story firsthand, but
forlorn is exactly right.
But he does strike me as more of an aggregator than a creator per se, and so,
yes, he is. Yeah.
But and that was I didn't want to, because it's never as simple as, I didn't want to say like Lorne Michaels took Doug Kenny's show, and it was the Doug Kenny created Saturday Night Live.
No, Doug Kenny was never going to put it on TV.
No, and
he couldn't.
And it was a whole different thing. And there's a million elements of what made SNL that have nothing to do with the Lampoon. But what we were just saying is a lot of the meat of it did come from those people.
I thought it was perfectly put together.
Yeah.
And how did I miss? And this is your fault.
Thank you.
How did I miss the Doug Kenny interview with Tom Snyder?
Oh, well, it never was found. It happened.
It happened.
The Doug Kenny was
Did it
on.
air?
It aired, and it was with Chris Miller, I think, also. And
I don't understand why I wouldn't have been watching it when it came out.
But I do know that there are just accounts of it, but it cannot be. We went through a lot of work to try to find it.
Did you try searching on YouTube?
Oh, wait a minute.
I would say Doug Kinney, Tom Snyder.
But was it YOUTUBE?
Did you try that?
No, because a friend of mine's getting me on internet next week. No, it's nowhere. We went to the NBC archives. We went to Tom Snyder group. We went everywhere we could find, and it just doesn't exist.
Well, if you want to compare crazy, Tom Snyder beats Doug Kinney hands down.
Oh, really? I loved Tom Snyder.
I love Tom Snyder. Tom Snyder had, now I usually consider this to be a bad thing, but Tom Snyder had as a good thing. Tom Snyder had no shame.
Yeah.
He would just speak.
Right.
And I was lucky enough to do his radio show. So this is recently, like, 10, 15 years ago. But Tom Snyder is just doing a radio show, right? We're in the radio studio, and he's banging them out. He's banging out like 5. One of these is, Penn and Teller has a book out or something. I don't even know what it was. And so there's people in there who are going to be interviewed after me. I don't even remember who it was. But, maybe someone who wrote a book on Karen Carpenter or something. They're going to be doing that. And I'd never met Tom Snyder in my life. And I'm going to go on. And Tom Snyder calls me over, and he says, hey, Penn, nice to meet you. Want to see something really fun? Watch this. Everybody thinks I'm out of my mind, out of my fucking mind. So he says, there's a lot of people in the booth there. I'm going to hold up your book, looking for the camera and see if I can get glare off it, like I'm out of my fucking mind, like I think I'm still on TV, and watch how they have this kind of uncomfortable feeling looking in at me.
Oh my God, I worship that guy.
This is the first words he says to me. There's one hello that he says this, and he goes in, and he's got the book in his hand, right? And he goes, so Penn Jillette's book Sock is out now. You can get it at bookstores. Pick it up.
To no camera.
And to no camera.
I love it.
Just holding it. And you see everybody in the booth horrified. Oh my goodness, this old man has lost his mind. He thinks he's still on TV and he's really on the radio. And he looks over at me and winks. Now, is that the definition of performance art?
Yeah. Or he's just buying he's like, you and I are on a team now. So we're together on this.
Yeah. We're doing something that'll show how crazy I am.
I love it.
And that's his goal. His goal is to teach people that he's out of his mind.
My God. I had no idea. There's so much stuff behind this. Yeah.
So watching Doug Kenny, and Doug Kenny, when I was reading National Lampoon, I was a child. Right. So, I went crazy for the Michael O'Donoghue and the P.G. O'Rourke stuff. I could not believe that someone could deal with comedy that way. It was a whole new thing for me.
So when the movies came out, did you feel what was your take on that?
I did not like Animal House.
Ah, interesting.
Just like, it's all right. Who cares?
You thought it was the more like mainstreaming of it.
Yeah. It wasn't National Lampoon.
See, and for me, Animal House came out when I was 7 or 8, and so that was my introduction to this sense of humor, and I was like, "This is my Bible."
Well, what year did it come out?
78.
78. So I was 23.
Right.
So exactly the wrong time.
Right.
When you're 23 and you love something and understand it, when they take it to another place, you're just not going to accept it.
For me, it was the movie that I needed to unscramble the HBO in order to see some of, on Betamax
and then Caddyshack. I thought Bill Murray was charming. I liked seeing Rodney Dangerfield and didn't care about the rest of the movie at all.
I will concede some of parts of Caddyshack definitely don't hold up, but that was another one that I probably watched daily with my friends.
Yeah. Well, that also has to do with technology.
Yeah.
You could watch it daily.
Right. No, but we had maybe 3 tapes, and one of them was Caddyshack, and that was.
But I mean, if the timing had been different as to when Betamax came out, that would have been Night at the Opera.
Sure.
That
totally.
you watched every day,
But I grew up watching that and Steve Martin specials from NBC like over and over and over again, just ingesting that in my bones.
Yeah, really good. We're going to talk more about this, but we're going to break this up, right? This should be one show, then do another show. So that was Penn Sunday School. Oops. Yeah, there you go.
Does that mean I can pee?
Yes, you can. Okay.
We're all going to pee.
Okay. Oh, you become naked. Yeah, David Wain just went to pee, and we'll come back Wednesday with the other half of our interview with him. And you're just in hog heaven, aren't you, man?
I am fucking
Yeah, I wish I knew more. I think I did know a little bit about the steak stuff. We'll get more into it.
State Children's Hospital, Wet Hot American Summer.
That was Penn Sunday School. We love you.
Stella.
Okay, I'll watch him. Shut up. Read the boost.
This is Penn Sunday School, and to our listening ears, all angels sings and round us rings the music of the
Penn's Sunday School, starring Penn. My name is Michael Goodell, and along with Matt Donnelly, we are broadcasting from the Show Creator Studios in Las Vegas. This episode is another interview with actor, writer, and director David Wain. We'll continue our talk about a futile and stupid gesture and what drove David into the world of comedy and why he became a director. Here he is preaching love, Mr. Penn.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, we always just a bossy guy.
I'm just glad to be back.
Also, a futile and stupid gesture is a great title.
Yeah. Well, obviously we didn't write that line.
Where's it from?
From Animal House.
It is an Animal House.
It is an Animal House?
They say this situation requires a really futile and stupid gesture. And when they're in big trouble with the school and they're about to get kicked out, they're like, well, we better just up it even more.
It's possible that Animal House is a really great movie.
I would suggest, honestly, of anything in that world to revisit that one because it does, in my opinion, hold up.
And that's John Landis.
John Landis directed it, and it was written by Harold Ramis and Chris Miller and Doug Kenny, and produced by Ivan Reitman, and it was their first movie, basically.
I will watch that again. I will watch Animal House.
I will watch it with you if you're going to watch it.
Let's do Animal House.
Tom Hulse and Donald Sutherland is in it, and great, and it's worth checking out.
Yeah, I went back because I have children. I went back and watched Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
which when it came out, I thought it was nothing. It's really good.
My kids really like it.
It's crazy good on all sorts of levels.
And then I took them to see the new one in the theater at the premiere, and we left halfway through.
That's because you hate women?
Well, it's because it was late. They were tired.
So, Doug Kenny was not happy with Caddyshack?
And I hate women.
Yeah.
Timing. Doug Kenny Caddyshack was a mess of a production to make. The studio took it away from him. They fired him off it for being belligerent, and they added a lot of elements to it that Doug didn't want, like the gopher. But ultimately, he wasn't happy with it, and he particularly, though, I think, was struck with this notion that he had made the most successful comedy of all time, literally, in Animal House up until then, and he felt enormous pressure to top himself or to stay on top, and he, in his own perception, if he wasn't staying on top, and we show this in our movie, when he saw Airplane, he was just thunderstruck, which is so odd because it's like most people would think of those two movies, apples and oranges.
Yeah.
But for him, he's like, no, this is now they're the ones.
There was when Airplane came out. There's this thing when things get really clever and smart, and then someone strips it down. It's always this shocking experience. When David Blaine did his first TV special, and we were working on Magic, doing this really complicated stuff, and he's out, this isn't literally true, but it might as well be, essentially doing the invisible deck.
Yeah.
David Blaine's first special was all stuff you could buy at a magic shop. Cigarette through the quarter.
Yeah.
Stuff that we had thrown out when we were 15, and did the best magic special that's ever been done on TV with, $20 worth of props from a magic store, and the brilliant idea of handheld cameras and shoot the audience and not the performer. In magic, the smartest thing has ever been done. And I was in this really, really weird position of people asking me, is David Blaine the greatest magician? And you saying, yes, he did the greatest TV special.
He had a great idea.
He has no skills. And people thinking that was bitter. So, like if you ask Miles Davis, how good are the Trogs?
Right.
Well, I know those three chords. Yeah. Boy, it's fun to dance to. It's a wonderful band. It's not exactly what we've been doing with bebop jazz. We're trying to do something else, but that's not that bad.
I have to do this now on air before you get this on Twitter or something. But you're not saying that you're the Miles Davis of magic.
I'm certainly not. It could have sounded that way, but I certainly wasn't.
I think you're the Charlie Mingus.
Yeah, Charlie Mingus. Closer.
So I get that out of the way here, so you're not dealing with mail later.
Later. Don't want to get that. But with Airplane, when that came out, the sense of that was, this is just funny.
Right.
you know.
And it was.
Right.
It's just funny.
They took out everything else.
Yeah.
And
Everything
that was
It's not a
kind of
movie.
great.
It's just jokes.
Yeah. And I was at a place then that I could accept that and appreciate that. But that was just random chance.
Yeah.
That could have bummed me beyond belief, because National Lampoon had found a way to take stupid and really intellectual and mix them together with a philosophy.
Oh, yeah.
With a real strong philosophy.
But sometimes in service of a really just dumb shit joke or whatever. And I indirectly took that as my inspiration for what I do too. It's just, you know, it's high and low simultaneously all the time.
And so that scene I found very, very moving, of him coming out of Airplane.
Yeah.
And the Shirley thing was perfectly done.
Yeah.
Just perfectly done. Beautiful. Now, did you really, is the sound on Martin Mull's song at the end of the movie?
That is him playing it live.
In the studio?
No, not in. What happened was when we shot the funeral scene for the food fight, at the end, when we had a giant funeral home covered with food and all the actors covered with food, we sat there and Martin Mull played the song live with the whole cast sitting next to him, and did it 2 times, and that was the whole thing. And we sang along at the end. And actually, if you stayed all the way to the end of the credits, you'd see a shot of that.
Yeah, I did.
And that's the only performance it is. That's it. He just did it live. And he's such a, you had mentioned this before, he's the most incredible guitar player alone. I mean, he was like, I played some guitar. I'm like, oh, great, an actor is going to come and play guitar. You know, usually get ready. But I'm like, oh, no, he's like better than most professional
Do you
guitarists.
know about his history with the guitar?
I know it more. I am embarrassed to say I know it more now than I did before.
Okay.
Do you really know the history?
Well, no, tell me.
Martin Mull was at RISD, where he was an associate professor or something at Rhode Island School of Design, and he would go down weekends and he would play gigs with bands. Do you know this?
No.
This was in the 60s. He would go down and play gigs, and he would sit in with bands, and he was the utility player. He was not going down as Martin Mull doing goofy little songs.
Right.
He was the guy really laying it down. And one of the guys he played with said to him, I'm going to go over to England, and I want to put together a brand new quartet. And I want to put together with me on lead and you on rhythm, and we'll get a bass player and a drummer over there. And I've got a whole vision of this. And we'll go over to England and do this. Do you want to come with me?
Oh, my God.
And Martin thought about it, went back to Jimmy James and said, I think I'm going to stay with the art. And Jimmy James said, and I'm going to go back to my name of Jimi Hendrix, but I guess we'll be a trio now.
Oh, come on. But then we wouldn't maybe have had the same Martin Mull we have.
Well, I tried to imagine this. If Jimi Hendrix had died and Noel Redding from the Jimi Hendrix Experience had come out trying to do funny songs, would the country have let him? No. You couldn't do that. There wouldn't be that Martin Mull. And he was the guy, he was playing with everybody in New York City then. And he was essentially the sessions guy.
It's amazing to me that I spent a few months working with this guy and heard so many amazing stories, but that one didn't come through. Hell.
I mean, he is a monster on guitar.
Oh, yeah.
He also did something that nobody is smart enough to do. When he went to record his records, you know, I listened to those records when they came out, Fabulous Furniture and all of that, and loved them. And then I got a little more sophisticated in music and had looked into some of the jazz guys, and I would go back listening to a Martin Mull track to play it for a friend. Here's Jesus Christ Football Star, how funny is that? Here's Jesus is Easy, how funny is that? And I'd say, wow, the band is really good. The band is really good. And I'd look at the credits, and it's Ray Brown on upright bass. And you'd go, this is the guy who played with Oscar Peterson and Miles Davis, and what's he doing on a Martin Mull record? And then you'd look and you'd go, wait a minute, for this the blacks are giving me the blues, this funk thing, isn't that Aretha Franklin's entire band playing with Martin Mull? And you look through the credits, and I finally, as I got to know Martin Mull, I said, what the fuck? Why do you have the best band? And he said, well, everybody comes to record a record. And he said they always bring their friends in to do a comedy record. You played with me on the road, and this was fun. And he said, I knew Steve Martin and could have gotten Steve Martin in to play stuff. But I said, wait a minute, we're going to play everybody union rates, right? So can I just call? He said, and you could call anybody.
And they come in and do it for their rate.
For scale, or some of them were double scale.
Oh, my God.
So I said, so he said, I thought, well, why not get like Aretha Franklin's band did to do? And I said, what about when you're doing the Blacks are giving me the blues? I can't stand up in their high heel shoes. All I've got that's black is the blues. I'm just another white human trying to sing like a spade and makes me sound like Randy Newman, according to this newsprint trade. You're singing that with the band there? And he goes, yeah. And they're playing funk like you can't believe and laughing their asses off. Where's the problem?
Did you hear about, you know, John Benjamin, the comedian?
No.
He's this guy who put together...
He's the voice of Archer.
He's the voice of Archer.
Yes.
And he did this jazz record where he got top guys, just like you're saying, in New York, jazz session guys, hired them for their rate, had them come in, and he was the leader of the quartet playing the piano, but he does not play the piano. And as he says on the jacket of the record, I'm not really particularly interested in learning to play the piano. But he does a full-length album of him doing his best he can based on those parameters with the top guys. And it is weird and hard to listen to and kind of incredible. John Benjamin.
You just fell in love with him.
Yeah. He's one of the funniest.
We knew you loved him from Archer.
I've worked with him on a lot of things. He's in Wet Hot American Summer and stuff, but he's the greatest. His sense of humor is that. You're gonna like this guy.
The
visual is Penn is sitting there with his mouth agape.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we did this thing where one of the characters on Archer is named Ray Gillette.
Oh.
And although Ray is not Teller's name is legally Teller, he was born with the name Raymond Teller. So I thought, when I saw the character Raymond Gillette, that maybe, just maybe, that was somebody on the writing staff of Archer making a little joke about us.
Yeah.
So I knew someone who knew someone who knew someone and finally got in touch with, isn't his name Wayne? Last name Wayne?
John Ben. Oh.
Who created Archer.
The creator.
Yeah. I think it is. That's what's confusing me now. Yeah. But I got in touch with him and said, is there any chance that this has anything to do with us? I'm embarrassed to ask, and he wrote back, no. Nothing to do with you at all. But what are you doing? I'd love to have you on Archer. So
Adam Reed.
Adam Reed. You know why? You know why Adam Reed makes me think his name was Wayne?
Because Bruce Wayne.
Yes.
Adam West. Yeah.
That's my mnemonic device for both of you.
Sure.
My mnemonic so that you had the same name to me. So I will be on Archer.
Oh, that's great.
The next season. So
I'm on Bob's Burgers with John Benjamin, who he also does that show.
Yeah.
Which is a great show.
That's the greatest I've ever heard.
Yeah. Well, wait till you hear it. It's great.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And you know, it's that thing of not only do you sit around the dinner table talking about something like that, but he went out and spent the time and the energy and the money to do it. And that's what I love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that very much.
Yeah.
It's doing it is everything.
Well, I think
thinking of it as nothing.
My dad, I think, taught me that when I was young. He said, "Ideas are a dime a dozen. It's the guys who get up in the morning and get them done who."
Well, yeah,
you know. Smart dad.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean,
now I want to bet you were off air. You were talking about you were into magic.
Yeah. Well,
since like a kid.
Since I was a kid, I've spent at least as much time practicing cards as I do anything else.
Oh, so you do card stuff?
I do cards.
What kind of card stuff you do?
I grew up as a kid magician doing birthdays and whatever. Then as my magic teacher told me when I was a kid would happen, when I discovered girls and kind of dropped it. But then somewhere in my...
Who was your magic teacher?
His name was Manny Sperling in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
And,
that's who you want to teach you in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah. He actually taught me some things that I still do to this day and that are I show other magicians, and they're like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting," like, So who knows?
Yeah.
But I just kept with it a bit over my life. But then in my early 40s, now I'm in my late 40s, I was like, I need to get into cards, like really understand it. And I started going deep in the reading and finding mentors and like practicing and really
Royal Road, heading down that.
Yeah, all the books,
Card College,
and also YouTube, and also just hounding people like Helder Gumaris and sitting down and be like, show me this and let me practice, and have I gotten better? I've practiced this for a year now. Can you show me? And so that's just one of my things. And among my group of friends, I'm like the master. They're like, you should be running the Magic Castle. I'm like, no, you have never been in the Magic Castle. Then you don't see. They laugh at me there, but
that's different. That's just from a organizational standpoint. You should be running Magic Castle.
That's
we didn't mean about magic.
The food would be better.
The accounts receivable there, and
somebody with a savings account should be running Magic Castle.
And you still do that all the time?
I do it all the time, but it's always just in casual situations. Only recently did I have my very first, okay, this is a benefit party for something, and David Wain is going to do 20 minutes of cards, and everyone gathered around, and I sat there and I had a practice set of stuff. And
what'd you do?
What did I do?
Triumph?
I did a
Invisible
Triumph.
Dag?
But I tried to do some. I tried to do some things that were not your typical.
Out of this world?
No.
Ambitious card?
What do you guys think I am? I did a mix of things.
Okay.
And I also I did a sort of a version of the Ricky Jay Amazing Manipulation bit where all the cards come out in order, and I did some things that were my spins on things that not my pure creations, but trying to be moved towards the closer to professional level.
Did you do Willie Nelson's Sam the Bellhop?
No, but I did. I used to do a comedy-ish version of Sam the Bellhop, where about half.
So much better than the heavy dramatic version. Of Sam the Bellhop.
In my version, it looks like the cards aren't in the right order at a certain point, and I just start improvising and trying to make it work, and then I just and then he said 8, 9, 10, and then he said 14.
Yeah, I always wanted to do. I always wanted to have the guts to just do Sam the Bellhop with a legitimately shuffled deck.
Yeah,
just going through and doing it and trying to make it fit.
There is a trick that's out it's a marketed technique that I saw that is almost that, where whatever comes out, you contextualize it and make it seem like you're making a poker hand now, or this time I'm associating the cards this way. Isn't that magical?
Right.
I forget what it's called.
Nice.
But so I enjoy following the whole thing and whatever.
I'm actually just trying to set you guys up for the story. You keep talking off air twice, but you haven't done on air.
What's that?
Is that he brought his kids to your show?
Oh yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the show. Had they seen the show before?
No, but we watch Fool Us together, and we watch Penn and Teller YouTube videos together, and so they were very primed and very excited, and they like magic, not as much as their dad just yet, but they enjoyed it. But boy, they were just blown away.
Well, we brought them on stage for a
right, because their kids are young enough. They did the young kids trick,
and they were the first, weren't they? Were they the first down? Pretty much.
Because they were not sure if it was like okay, because we were guests of the.
I believe I actually said your name.
Yeah, well, that's what. You were like, "Are David's kids in the audience?" And I said to the other person, I was like, "Did he just say my name?" But then, they came. But it was so amazing. You do this new trick where you have the kids know the secret and perform the trick, entirely, and the adults and the rest of the audience doesn't know how you do it, and I don't know how you did it, but my kids do.
Yeah, and it was they did a wonderful. And I did say that because I thought, they're going to be wondering, should I go on because we were backstage before the show? I need to tell them that's okay.
Yeah.
So they came on down and had a great deal of. They were doing a lot of show busy stuff.
Well, they're very they like to ham it up, but it was I can't even explain the thrill. I was on stage when I was exactly my younger son's age with Doug Henning in Cleveland, I remember, and I'll never forget that in the rest of my life.
What trick did you do with Doug Henning?
I think I did a rope trick of sorts, or it was linking rings.
Blackstone Sr. used to do a whole thing where he'd bring. I just think this is cruelty personified. He would bring a child up from the audience, do a whole thing with them, produce a rabbit at the end, and then give them the rabbit.
What are you supposed to do with the rabbit?
Thus causing
the greatest
anguish for the parents, the child, and the rabbit for all time.
Yeah, and just the ride home is just like
everything.
What happened?
What, do you have a supplier of rabbits to do that?
Life is cheap.
Wow.
I bet he only gave away the last night of each tour.
I probably was. Yeah, probably was.
Just was like,
here you go.
There you
Take
go.
this.
I gotta get another
Golly,
one.
golly, giving away chickens.
You know, we
Here's 10 chickens. Thanks for coming.
we did a trick. We did a trick with a duck once.
Oh, yeah.
Where the ducks go.
And the bag?
With the duck, yeah. And the bag hit with an anvil. And we were on tour. And we would put in our rider that we had to have a duck. We needed to have a duck.
Oh, so each town provided you with a duck?
With a duck for that week tour. We're not going to tour with a duck. The duck was not trained.
We need Coca-Cola and a duck.
And and we asked for a duck, and I forget where it was. I now want to say Ohio because I'm looking at you, but it was one of the cities we got to, and we said we need the duck, and they brought out a fully dressed duck out of the refrigerator, cooked, not cooked, but fully butchered duck.
Oh, wow.
And we said no, we meant a live duck. And they said we don't know how to get a live duck. So there was a duck who took a vacation from the park, who was visited by our crew, who was lured with bread, went into show business, and then after a week was let back into the park.
His cushy life was over.
To tell his duck friends what he'd gone through.
I don't think of ducks as like standard on the list of animal provider items, right?
Yeah.
It's dogs and stuff, right?
Yeah, well, we have to, when we tour, we need to have goldfish.
Right, of course.
And we wanted to get a chicken, but in Tahoe they couldn't get a chicken, so we used a rabbit.
Because I had baby chicks, and now looking at tour stops and stuff, it's that you can't travel with chickens.
Right.
You can't get chickens declared like a safety animal or anything like that. Or comfort animal.
Yeah.
So you have to go anywhere they have like a live feed.
Feed store, go to the feed store. Yeah.
So you have to wherever.
And to get 6 because they die.
Yeah, you gotta get more than one.
And then you have to release them.
In Kentucky, I don't know if it was a county rule or a state rule, but you couldn't buy less than 6. I don't know what that rule is for, but you're not.
That's how many you need to get one home alive.
That's it. It's that. So we had 6 baby chicks to give away at the end of the Hillbill show.
There you go. One per show.
Our
Just
sketch
hand 'em
group
out.
had a sketch that had a pig's head in it, and so every night you had to get a new one because it was disgusting, and you didn't have a place to put it. Go to Chinatown.
Get a pig's head. So how come we always think that doing stuff that's smart and breaks the fourth wall in a movie is going to destroy the flow? And why doesn't it in Stupid and Futile Gesture?
I just feel like so often it actually does destroy the flow because people... I guess everything is taste. For me, it's so often done the wrong way. And if it's not... It's sort of like if you make an offensive joke and it's also not funny, then you're really in trouble. But if you make an offensive joke and it's funny and it lands, then maybe it works.
Yeah,
and so,
maybe you're still in trouble, but...
Yeah, and I guess to me, a lot of times when you do something that's self-reflexive or break the fourth wall, it actually can not undercut what you're emotionally trying to communicate. It can actually enhance it, because by calling attention to the artifice, somehow it somehow adds power to it. And like in our first movie, Wet Hot American Summer, and everything, most of what I do, we're telling these stories and we're constantly reminding you that it's a story or making a joke about exactly what's happening. And somehow, if the power of the actual following the characters and caring what happens to them still works, then it works in an even bigger way.
But you've also made me do the work. When in magic, you can never beat a lie the audience tells themselves.
Right.
So if I say I'm going to shoot this gun and Toad's going to catch the bullet in his teeth, then you just say bullshit. No way. If I say we're going to move the bullet from this side of the stage to the other side of the stage, and this is my magic wand, and the audience says he's going to catch the bullet in his teeth, they don't have nothing to fight about. What I found really worked for me on that was that I was kind of watching. I didn't even know I was doing this, but it was kind of my default setting, watching to see what I could bust about your movie. And then you came out and said, this is what's wrong with it. And I went, no, it's not that bad. Come on, calm down. It's fine. You're close enough. You're close enough.
Right.
Of course, you can't get actors that look like those people.
Yeah,
you can't even, don't even.
No, don't worry about it, Dave. Calm down. It's okay.
Right.
And you put me on the other side.
Oh, that's
You
interesting.
put me on the side of defending you.
We actually had a lot of debates about. We had an even more extensive segment in there where we had all the characters on camera right in that same moment talking on screen to the audience and saying, I'm just a composite character. I never did this, or the guys came to me later and whatever. And we felt like that was tipping it too far into, and throughout the whole process of making it, it's a very delicate balance.
When that whole list comes on, which I did not freeze frame and read.
Yeah.
Many people do. What are some of the things on that list of things?
Maddie Simmons had known them long before they pitched him doing the magazine and helped them with some of the parodies. The ordering of a lot of things is not quite what it was. There was a third founder of National Lampoon who was just not talked about because he left early on enough that it wasn't really the main part of the story. Things like that. But his brother died when Doug was much older than we show him to be.
Oh, yeah.
Which is probably the biggest leap we took because it's such an emotional underpinning of the story. But there's a bunch of them, and again, it's to sum up a lifetime in 90 minutes, it's quite a task.
Well, that was the still one of the great. There was a movie called Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll about Ian Dury, not the one by Bogosian, but about Ian Dury, the Blockheads. And they asked Ian Dury's son if the movie was accurate. And he said if the movie were to be accurate, it would have to be 58 years long.
Exactly. But even then, wherever you put the camera is still a choice and a lie.
But boy, that's one thing. 58 years. No, you did it in 90 minutes.
Yeah.
You were doing some.
Well, and then I felt such a daunting task just chronicling the generation that came before me. It was like it's almost overwhelming. And then I just decided at some point I just have to tell this story and make this movie. And nothing can be definitive, or it is what it is.
Now, did when they did the I was going to say here on the to do that the incidents that were in there, the incident with the dynamite and the police.
That was right.
Is there a basis of that?
That happened. That exactly happened.
Well, tell that story.
So somebody said, as over time, the fan base of Lampoon was a little nutty, and they got sued right and left, and they kind of got off on it. But at one point, somebody sent dynamite to Michael O'Donoghue as a form of fan mail, and so they had to call the police in and disarm it, and it was a big thing. And I think Maddie Simmons was excited about it, and he tried to make more publicity out of it. And I don't know beyond that how many of the exact details that we showed were exactly right, but that's what happened. It's crazy. I mean, there was all, and there's for every story that's in there, there's a million that we didn't put in.
Now, how many of the people that are in the movie did you ever get a chance to meet?
Oh wow, the characters portrayed in the movie.
Yeah. Did you know Tony Hendra?
I don't think I've ever met any of them.
None of them.
I mean, because I just didn't cross paths with those. I've never met. Just happens. I've never met Bill Murray or Harold Ramis, or I think I might have met him for 2 seconds. At most, I might have met somebody for 2 seconds here or there, but I didn't know anybody.
Because I did a book with Tony Hendra.
Yeah.
And got to work with Tony Hendra.
Really?
Yeah.
Because he's known as being like a tough dude.
Tough.
Yeah.
Very tough dude to work with.
And I know that he was in touch with us because, a lot of these guys are still active and trying to do stuff. And of course, and the current version of the National Lampoon is still around. That title has been sold and bought by various corporate interests over the years, and they're still trying to make it a brand.
Yeah, for a while, Ratso, Sloman, Larry Sloman, who wrote the Stern book and Houdini book, and a good friend of mine. For a while, Ratso was the editor. He was also the editor of High Times.
And I think Chris Guest bought it at one point. Yeah. And then different people, it's changed hands. But so a lot of people we've had to sort of have negotiations with to make sure that they, there was a lot of. In fact, I almost was scared to do the movie because I thought it would be too big of a legal turmoil. There's just so many.
Has there been any problems?
No, we just took a lot of time, and our legal team did a great job of just making sure everything was okay.
And have you got reactions when everybody's in it?
We got some. Ann Beats wrote a really nice email.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Boy, since I was in high school, I've loved her.
She's amazing.
I loved her writing. I loved everything.
Mm-hmm. She said, thank you for making me look more feisty and smart and cool than I really was, whatever. But
which makes you not doubt at all that she's all those things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's a good writer.
Maddie Simmons' daughter actually has a tiny walk-on role in the film.
Oh, really?
And we put in a lot of little, Martha Smith, who was Babs in Animal House, plays the tour guide in the film, and we have Mark Metcalf from Animal House is also in there. But we haven't gotten any major, huge reaction from anyone, and certainly no negative reaction from anyone that I can at all.
Let me see. Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, Michael O'Donoghue.
Michael O'Donoghue's long gone, obviously.
P.J. O'Rourke, people that I knew.
Oh, yeah, sure.
P.J. O'Rourke. P.J. O'Rourke's not really in it, though, is he? Is his character?
They are shown making the yearbook with.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, not in a huge way. But
did you hear from P.J. at all about that?
No, I haven't heard. And our between the writers and producers, we sort of do keep a record of who we've heard from. But we haven't heard from P.J.
Yeah, well, I bet he would. I bet he would like it because he's odd because then he went politically. Not to the straight Hollywood liberal.
Not at all.
Everybody else, he's libertarian and outspoken about that. And when you look back on the stuff he wrote and the way he ended up there, it's just it was really. Here's one. Wasn't the woman who's presented as Busty in real life bustier than the woman you cast?
Yes. Mary Marshmallow.
Mary Marshmallow, who was in the Photo Funnies.
Right, exactly.
It's the same one who was in the Photo Funnies, where they have the photo funny where they just describe her breasts as eggplants.
Right.
Right. I remember that because remember when I first read National Lampoon, I was 15, and that's before the internet.
And that's all that mattered. Oh, I know.
I was not only seeing great comedy, I was also seeing topless women for the first time.
But that was the real reason that it was such a massive hit, I think.
Was it really?
Well, I think it was that thing where kids bought it. Everyone loved the humor and loved what it had to say, but they're like really making sure to buy it because of the tits.
But Mary Marshmallow was much bigger than the actress you cast. I would think that would be a lawsuit in itself.
I don't think we ever were able to track her down, but
she'll find you.
Yeah, but LV Yost was just right for the role, and her breasts were big enough. But it was interesting. Some of the people, Catherine Walker, who's played by Emmy Rossum in the movie, was very basically saying like, I'd rather not get into this. I don't want to talk about it.
I don't know what you mean.
When Emmy Rossum and we reached out to her to, can you tell us about the stories and stuff? And she was like, I just don't want to.
And which one she?
She plays Doug's girlfriend at the end of the film.
Oh yeah. And Doug's girlfriend at the end didn't want to talk to you about it at all.
The real life woman did not want to talk about it, and a couple people were just like, I'd rather.
We understand that, don't we?
Yeah. Oh, totally. No, and we didn't push anybody.
What an asshole!
No.
She didn't want to run.
I'm making a movie.
I mean,
dig it up.
Ann Beats her first reaction was also that, and then she opened up a little more to Natasha Lyonne. But it was, I understand. Believe me, some of the tragic stories, and I we're just making a movie. It's not that big. It's not that important. But I'd be curious to hear what some of the real people. I'd be thrilled to hear if Bill Murray saw it or any of these people. Joel McHale asked Chevy Chase if he wanted to check it out or can he send him a link, and Joel said that Chevy said, "What's a link?" And so.
Now, what was it like to try to cast those people? Like casting.
We went through a lot of philosophical discussions of do we.
That's right.
That word just flows.
Those are different kinds of discussions from the ones you're thinking.
We, because it's this idea of playing characters that we all know what they look like and sound like can be have a lot of pitfalls, and so we thought, do we go like Hamilton and just play, cast completely without regard to physical example,
right.
or what? And we ended up doing a slightly more conventional thing, which is find the best actors who can channel the essence without worrying about being exact, not trying to do CGI or anything.
Well, the O'Donoghue and Gilda Radner were scary close.
I know.
Yeah.
And these are both people that's sort of in our community. Jackie
I know.
It's just really.
And she's like, it's also a big different. She's in Glow now, playing a very different type of person. She's a very different. Like, she definitely acted her ass off as Gilda.
She's amazing, and a lot of her ended up on the cutting room floor because she was in the Lemmings stuff and the Radio Hour stuff. But she's
well, that's the thing, boy. You know, we talked about National Lampoon and we talked about Lemmings, but Radio Hour.
Yeah.
Wow, was that good?
That's when I heard some of those sketches, that's what really lit my fire. I was like, man, were they? And no one would do this today at all. It was just insane. Some of that stuff.
I still remember things I heard once.
Yeah.
The first time it was broadcast, I still remember all the beats to it.
Yeah.
And it also has taken me a lot of time to go, oh, wait a minute, that voice that I knew from there, that was actually Bill Murray. You know, you know, because it was all those guys.
Well, and that really was the starting point for SNL. That was them doing these guys doing those sketches, and it was Bill Murray and Gilda Radner and Harold Ramis and Chris Guest, and it was just, and Belushi, you know, just amazing. Although I will say, for me, listening through the actual tapes of those sketches, it was actually quite hard to find relatively short pieces that still would make enough sense and hold up today to include in our movie that people would get out of context of the time and place and the show. It was.
Is the stuff weaker when you listen to it now?
Is it weaker, did you say? Yeah, I think overall, like I said, it's just sort of hard to pull it through.
It's a societal shock
in
at that time.
In the Mike Nesmith book.
Yeah.
You know, he really does hit something. I guess everybody knows, but he hits it beautifully when Mike Nesmith says, "You cannot listen to Jimi Hendrix. You cannot listen to him. You cannot understand. Those records don't make any sense anymore. You had to hear them when they came out." And it always, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Lenny Bruce. You know, Lenny Bruce died when I was 12, and I memorized the Carnegie Hall concert and all of those. And trying to play Lenny Bruce, he sounds like the hack because everybody took from that.
Right.
Every single person took everything, and it's now such a part of our culture, there's nothing surprising. Like listening to the Velvet Underground.
Although somehow I think it's different with music, because Velvet Underground and Jimi Hendrix are examples of bands a little bit before my time that I completely got pounded by.
And Nesmith's argument would be that, yes, they're still wonderful, but you cannot hear
what it really was,
what it really meant.
Well, yeah, of course, and that's and we were throughout the whole making of our movie, we were worried about that, sort of like you had to be there and understand that nobody had done this before all the time.
I mean, when I opened National Lampoon and saw if Ted Kennedy had driven a Volkswagen, he'd be president today. Why Volkswagens float?
Right.
When I opened up that full-page spread ad in black and white of a picture of a Volkswagen floating, I could not believe that could be
right.
But to me, that's an example of something that still to this day is just like, wow. That's
well, yeah.
Unbelievable.
But that's
we
my
still
point.
have all the context for that. And a lot of it we don't.
My point is, when that actually happened in real time.
Yeah. Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Well, I always think about, like, you know, when the Rolling Stones were like, here's a new one, you know, and they play any of their great songs or Led Zeppelin, and just like, you know, I can't even imagine what that is as a new, like, we're trying this new one out.
I think it's so hard now there's so many tiers of access and so many tiers of success and platform. Like, you can't go back and realize, like, the kind of like at the expense of mainstream that this thing got a platform. Do you know what I mean? Like, to break through at all was to break through on a large level or nothing.
Yeah.
Well, also just the understanding, which it was hard to communicate, that magazines itself were a thing that mattered a lot.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Like today, a magazine doesn't even exist. The whole idea of what magazine that like is a part of a culture that people care about and talk about and think about and have loyalty towards. You know?
But also the really did it aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about the jazz record that he really did it.
Yeah.
The fact that the magazine was actually published, that it went and got printed
and mailed,
and got sent and mailed and all of that. I mean, any of the stuff, that ad for the Volkswagen, it really floats, that is a meme That's nothing.
Right.
That's, that's what, 25 seconds of Photoshop.
Well, and that
maybe
was
a minute and a half.
Yeah.
But then it was, they took the picture.
Yeah.
One of the crucial things they realized early on, and we show this in the movie, is that
That was great. The switch of the artist.
Yeah,
Yes.
to actually put the real effort into the design and make it look like the things that they're spoofing instead of just making it all goofy.
R-Crumb, yeah.
And then they realized that to put in that work, make it great, make it the whole thing laid out professionally and everything. They realized that was the vessel to really spoof, and really kill it. I just loved it. I love that part.
Yeah, when you compare...
Well, it's the Marx Brothers deciding that people had to be in tuxedos to be hit with pies.
Right. Yeah. And we sort of did that.
Stooges.
Stooges, yeah.
But yeah, and we did that in Stella. That was sort of inadvertently how with the three of us were a troupe that we always wear coat and tie, and that emerged from our stage show. That was like a martini stage show that we tried to do a more dressed up thing. And then when we took it into TV and took our coat and tie characters out in the street and stuff, the juxtaposition worked. There was a slick environment for really stupid comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just the fact that, when you do that ad, you're going to have lawsuits. You're going to have... I mean, it's just that whole process. The idea that that a thing that you create, that Volkswagen ad is 35 people working for 3 weeks to get that ad.
Yeah. It's almost like, the Washington Post puts all that effort into putting out the Pentagon Papers, and they're like, screw it, we have to do it. This is what we do. And I think they had the same ethos there with the comedy. Yeah. They were like, we got to get this joke out, and I don't where the chips fall, who cares? And
the idea, Tony Hendra, for all his crazy and everything, the idea of smart, young, hip people are going to make fun of hippies. That was the thing that shocked me. I mean, and then when Tony Hendra did his Magical Misery tour and made fun of John Lennon, genius is pain, ouch, ouch. I could not believe someone was making fun of John Lennon.
I'll have to send you Matt Lucas doing that bit that we shot, playing Tony Hendra, and it's one of my favorite things we shot that's not in the film.
Oh man,
so funny.
Because when I first heard that,
well, he was doing
Genius is Pain, and the fact that everything he says is from a John Lennon interview,
right? A Rolling Stone interview that they took word for word and turned into lyrics of this song, and then it's just incredible. Yeah.
Is there now in the modern era? Is there a way? There's so much stuff that sounds fascinating from the cutting room floor. Is because it was cut out for the movie's storytelling sake, is there a place that you would like it to live elsewhere?
Frankly, I would. With Netflix, they're not as much into the extras coming out. There's no DVD because what's the point when it's already on Netflix?
Right.
And I think there's been some discussion. I hope some of it will come out. I think some of our team, there's disagreements on how much, if it's not in the movie, then it's not in the movie for a reason kind of thing. My feeling is it's interesting. People should see it if they want to. Yeah,
and also because if you change the context and put it out in the clip, you're changing. Why am I arguing for you? I don't know. But
in other words, if you're on my side here, it sounds
that's what I mean. It's like if you say hey, side note on this article, like this on the online somewhere, if it's like this actor played this person.
Well, it's like inside the New York Times. Inside the New York Times puts out that thing every week where they go, here's the stuff we didn't put in.
Well, I always think about, in my line of work, you do a lot of pilots for shows that never go.
Yeah.
And you spend, 100 people spend 4 months making a movie, basically.
Yeah.
Not only does it not get picked up for series, but no one ever sees what you did. And to me, that's absurd. Why doesn't the network play it one time or put it online or something?
Right.
So
someone was doing that for a while. There was one.
Yeah. The pilots.
But I think the reason is because the network doesn't want the embarrassment of the whole world being like, this is amazing.
Right. What did he turn that down?
It's probably too much of a headache. Plus licensing and who the hell knows.
Yeah, then you got to pay. There's certain things you have to pay or something.
Yeah.
There's some reason the grown-ups aren't doing this.
But at least Donnelly's on my side on this one, right?
I totally am because you cast the first season of SNL. You found great actors,
Right.
You know what I mean? And
you did Lemmings again. We want to see it.
Yeah, like, and then there's a context, there's a separate context for it in which it could be presented, which we would like it, and I don't think it would cause an outcry of like, why wasn't that in the movie? I think if you just say,
I'm going to go to work on it right after we.
Now, did you find any video of any film or anything of Lemmings?
No.
There's nothing that exists.
Could not find anything, and we looked hard. But we did go and photograph the still there marquee of the Village Gate and put it up on our set digitally so that it would at least have that accurate piece.
When I went to see Lemmings, I had very, very long, very, very curly hair. And I was sitting in the front row. And Chevy Chase did the thing of being the biker, drunk on beer, who touched my fucking bike. And that entire routine was done with Chevy's hand in my hair, pulling a whole handful of my hair, going, "Are you the one that fucked up my bike?"
Really?
Fucked up my bike, yeah. So that whole, I was the audience participant in that, and being manhandled by Chevy Chase.
Had we known that someone with a photographic memory such as yourself had been there, could have reached out to you for more detail.
Oh,
More things that could have been not shown, except on Matt's recreation show.
my website.
It's on my laptop for anyone who cares. Run into me, and I have my bag with me. I will show you the deleted scenes from the Futile and Stupid Gesture.
as a
and
touring show.
speaking of this, I don't think there's any reason that anybody listening to this should not watch A Futile and Stupid Gesture.
Which is on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
Thank you
And
for
it's
saying
really
that.
easy to find. And, you know, I made you tell that story because Martin Mull told me. He said, I played this for the director. He really liked this song. He played it for me. And, of course, I cried. And he said, I played it for the director, and he liked it. And we recorded it just on the set. They just plugged in my guitar, and I just played, and we recorded it, and the cast was there and sang along. And I was thinking, they didn't just record it with his mic he had as a character and with his guitar just plugged into an amp around the corner and people standing around. They didn't just do that. And the song came up, and I listened to it and went, I think Martin's lying. That sounds studio, but wait a minute, it has a little more air than I wonder if they really did that.
Not only did we did at the end of a really long shoot day where we did that whole funeral sequence, and we're like, you know, do we really have time for this day? I'm like, yes, we're shooting the song. And everyone just gather up, roll cameras, and let's shoot this. And it was really special. And by the end, the cast was all in tears. Yeah. And it's very real. And
you also have all of that, of Martin singing that song.
Well, I was going to say, it's only a snippet of it on screen in our film, and boy, would I love for that to come out. We actually, at Sundance, when we premiered the film, he came and he performed it live for an audience there with some of the cast, and it was a beautiful thing. That is online somewhere, but I would love to, You know what? You've inspired me, guys. I'm going to put out the Blu-ray of just the deleted scenes.
Go watch it.
Can we be in the liner notes?
When I said you were going to be on, friends of mine went crazy about Wet American.
Hot American Summer.
Wet Hot American Summer.
Yeah,
which
I haven't seen.
Oh, you might. I think you might enjoy that too.
Well, I was going to say, like,
watch that and then watch Animal House.
Okay.
Like what I was saying, like Wet Hot American Summer, Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
Like, because I teach, coach improv kind of stuff, and you try to go into that era of like slapstick, right? And Children's Hospital is basically the only example I can like point to where it's like joke that kind of like joke, the amount of jokes on every level that can happen in that show.
Right.
And there's so few things left that do that anymore. Is that something that just you thought about at all, or just a guilty pleasure again?
It's just the way I like to do things. The Children's Hospital is an 11-minute show that was on Adult Swim for 7 seasons, and every episode is basically an hour-long drama's worth of plot, all just jokes, but pretty dense and highly crafted, I would say.
Yeah.
And it was
animated.
No. Live action.
It's great. It's like
slick.
Like the first time you saw Airplane,
yeah,
and you're like, I can't believe how many ways they can hit this.
And also the cast is Lake Bell, Henry Winkler, Malin Ackerman, Rob Corddry. Rob Corddry is the creator, and it's a really cool show that I loved working on for 7 years.
Well, then I get a lot of stuff to watch. A lot of stuff to watch as I start trying to earn my way into the David Wain fan club.
Oh my goodness!
And
are we wrapping? Can I have one more geek out moment, please?
Please, yeah, sure.
Okay, so what I love about the state and then Stella.
This is killing me.
You don't want to do it?
No, I'm loving it.
Okay. Because when I try to tell people, like, improv is so huge now, it's so universal. When people were doing it in the 90s and or 2000s, technology wasn't there yet, so you could go out and make sketches and put things on YouTube, right?
Right.
So when everyone was so weird talking about, like, trying to get on a team or trying to be in or whatever, like, we weren't trying to get on a team to say, like, hey, I got on a house team, check that box. We all were trying to form our version of the state.
Oh my God!
Like we all want to. Like when it's so hard to explain to people taking comedy now, that people doing comedy then, when they're making groups, were trying to be the state or Kids in the Hall kind of thing.
It's just so interesting how it's just like that thing with Doug Kenny and Lampoon. Like for me, like everything is really just somebody who's trying to do what they grew up with before.
Yeah.
And certainly what we were doing is we want to be Monty Python, or we wanted to be SNL or SCTV, and
and as we try to go into like show business, and you realize how hard it is, and especially when you're trying to be a group of like 9 or 10 people trying to do something, how fucking impossible that is. When I saw Stella, I was like, oh, we can grow up. We can still work with our friends. We can still do really cool fucking specific things.
Well, I am blessed that the 11 of us in that group, we still, all the 30 years in, still work together all the time in different configurations. It's been a group that's still, I mean, you wouldn't understand that, but it's... No.
But I will say, like, I don't think you guys get enough. I don't think, if it were not for the state, I don't think the improv boom, the way it happened in the late 90s and early 2000s, and how that imprint is everywhere now in mainstream comedy, I don't think it would have happened without the state.
I don't know what to say, but thank you.
That was Penn Sunday School.
That was Penn Sunday School.
Cha-cha-cha.
And to our listening ears,
You become naked.
angels sang and round us rang the music of the spheres.
So what's my homework assignment? The state, Stella, hot white American summer,
hot American summer.
Right.
I think we're gonna start. I think we should start with
That was Penn Sunday School. We're gonna start with what?
we're gonna watch Animal House.
Have you seen the 10?
House.
Have you seen the 10?
No.
That's like graduate school, David Wain.
Okay.
Penn Sunday School.
Are we off?
No, go.
I was just thinking you might like that. This movie, The 10, we did in about 2007 because it's the 10 Commandments, one story inspired by each of the 10 Commandments. And it's like 10 lengthy sketches.
How am I missing this stuff? I'm just a Philistine.
You're in the loop with a lot of stuff.
I'll get in the loop with this too.
But we'll Children's Hospital, we'll knock those out.
Okay.